So James, Principal, Heaton Intermediate School. So we have about 540 students, year 7 and 8s here, wide range of students and student need as does everywhere. One of the things about Pulse is it's identifying students to us to have a conversation with that we wouldn't have otherwise suspected to have that conversation with. And you'll find that the majority of intermediate schools do provide counselling services for their students. Pulse is part of that solution for us in identifying those kids, among many other things. One of the reasons that we find Pulse quite useful is because it actually gives us some tangible data on things that before were kind of out of reach, in terms of, well, I think there's a problem there, I'm not really sure. You know, I think there's a bit of low mood in that class, not really sure. Now I can just pull up the data and have a look. If a student reports, you know, parents say a student's having an awful time at school, I can go back and look at that child's historical record of Pulse and how they've been checking in and say, oh yeah, actually from our point of view, she's checking in fine and dandy every single Thursday morning, right? So what's going on here? What's, you know, that leads to those questions. And that for me is the biggest power, really, the ability, because I'll check it every Friday morning. I'll look at any kids, I'll identify any kids that are of concern. I'll get in touch with that teacher and say, look, just check in with this child, just have a chat with them, see how they're going, right? 9 times out of 10, she's all good. But at 1 time out of 10, that's the one, right? Pulse is the kind of trigger to ask the question, right? You know, if a child's training, let's say they're training rapidly down, right? We have a conversation and there's major problems at home, that will go through to the counsellor. The counsellor will deal with that. And then it's kind of, we don't go to the parent and say, oh, you know, the Pulse survey was really bad, right? We actually go to the parent and say, look, our counsellor's had a discussion with your child and this is what came out in the discussion. The Pulse is the, you know, it's the canary in the coal mine, right? It's not the solution as such. Like anything new, right? You have to do the why. You know, you have to explain to people why we're doing it and why this matters. From our point of view, they see us as a leadership team actively following up. They know that I'm looking at it and I'm saying, you know, can you check on Johnny for me? And they go check on Johnny, and all of a sudden they realise something about Johnny that they didn't know before. So like, I'll do Pulse summaries to my staff. I'll send out and say, oh look, this is where we're doing. We're training up, training. This is how we're comparing nationally. All the rest of it, make sure you check in on your class. So we'll do that as a generic level. Once a term, we'll sit down, and anybody who wants to can come along. We'll put all the past Pulse data out and we'll look at the data together. But also it's those real specific follow-ups with, you know, Johnny's tracking down, what's going on with Johnny, can you follow up please? And they see the value of that, right? All I can say is that they do engage. Some engage multiple times a week. So they'll go back to the link, and you realise there's only been 5 weeks of term, but they've got 10 posts, and you're trying to work out how that happened. So they do engage, and they do, when you follow up with students, I feel they're taking it seriously. I genuinely, you know, most of the kids are taking it pretty seriously. They're doing an honest response on the questions. Kids' wellbeing can change radically from 1 week to the next, right? So sharing last year's data with another school, to me, that's not an appropriate thing, because that child could be in a completely different space, for better or worse, at this point in time, right? So the whole point of Pulse, to me, is that we're riding that roller coaster with them, right? And we know where they are at that given point in time.